and I have the pleasure and honor to introduce the next keynote speaker, Dr. Hans Kierstead. He is the chairman and CEO of AIVITA Biomedicals. And let me tell you a little bit about himself. It's a pretty long bio, so I'm going to take away the key point. So he's an internationally recognized stem cell expert and successful entrepreneur, known for developing treatments for quadriplegic spinal cord injury, cancer therapies for melanoma, brain and ovarian cancers, and multi-pathogen vaccine. He has also advanced therapeutic research for motor neuron diseases, retinal diseases, immune disorders, and age-related immune decline. Each of Dr. Kierstead's 3 prior biotech firms was acquired by major pharmaceutical companies for 2.5 to 10x returns to investors. He currently holds board positions in several leading biotech, including AIVITA Biomedical, Immunis, and the Global Human Immune Project. He has been a professor at UCI for 15 years. I would like to welcome Dr. Kierstead to the stage.
Thanks, everybody. Real pleasure to be here. I've got 20 minutes to tell you what I think is coming down the pipe in the next generation of medicines. This has come from me doing this a few years and being on helping governments. I advise a number of governments around the world on emerging technologies. So I'll start here by way of a background. So you're not a whole lot different from a tree. Your building blocks from one of the longest lived mammals on this earth is almost identical. The cells in you are just about identical, in many ways completely identical to that of a Greenland shark. You're actually not that different from a tree when you get down to the cellular biologics of what makes you tick. But look at the changes in lifespan of these things. Oops, there we go. Greenland shark is reproducing at 250 years, lives on average 550 years. These trees live for 3,000 years, but they're basically the very same building blocks that you're made of. So what is it that differs? We've known for a long time that your genetics aren't the thing, primarily, that control your lifespan and your health span. The easiest example of that is you have the same genetics when you were a baby, but you look a whole lot different now. Genetics are identical. So it's not really your genetics. There are some things in your genetics that do control your lifespan and your health span, but it's really not the genetics primarily leading this. Rather, it's a software issue. If you think of genetics being your hardware, it's actually the software that turns on that gene or turns off that gene. And that's known as epigenetics. So we've seen for 30 years or more, very recently by a professor at Harvard, but honestly, in the 80s, this was beginning, when C. elegans and worms and then mice and now little human organoids, we can change the genetic expression and fundamentally alter the lifespan of these animals or human organoid tissues. So it works. The way that David Sinclair did it in human tissues, and he was the first person in the world to do it in human tissues, could never be done in a human. So don't think that method of genetically engineering 4 different factors to revert you is going to be a therapy. But what it does is it shows that it's epigenetic reprogramming, turning genes on and off that fundamentally change your lifespan and your health span. So what are the things that change your genetics? These are them. So you can't really control a whole lot about the outside, but you can control a whole lot about what happens on the inside, turning your genes on and off. And the number 1 modifier of your genetics, this is not experiments, these are been known for 50 years now, is your immune system. So your immune system is the number 1 thing that changes your genetics. We know that your genetics are the primary driver of aging. They're the primary driver of disease. They're the primary driver of whether or not you are alive or you're dead. It's your immune system, and it works through your epigenetics. It's interesting that you see metabolism and hormones underneath that. They're actually controlled by your immune system. So my point here is that We have a lot of attention from very basic understanding of biology. The field has a tremendous amount of focus right now on the immune system. The problem is we know extremely little about it. So I was honored about 18 months ago to join the board of the Human Immunome Project. And I was one of those board members that spoke too loudly, and 6 months later I was leading the organization. And it's like the Human Genome Project, which sequenced the human genome and has revolutionized healthcare. But your genetics are here and your health is here. Your immune system is right there. Your immune system is right beside your health. That the understanding of the immune system amongst the best immunologists in the world is estimated to be 1 to 5%. So it is a great frontier. It is the great space exploration, or the deep sea exploration in the world is actually inside of us. We know less about the immune system than any other organ in the body. So the Human Immunome Project is basically born out of the Human Genome Project, so to speak, in that we've pulled together thousands of immunologists all over the world for the last few years in order to articulate what is the plan for us to actually decipher the human immune system in every single human population. So we couldn't have done this before because the tools just didn't exist. But it's actually over the last 2 years that a number of immunological breakthroughs have been made in order to make the diagnostic tools that are now available. The artificial intelligence revolution is also needs to be there. So, cutting to the chase here, we will generate about 1.9 trillion bits of data and put that into what will be the world's largest artificial intelligence in healthcare that's being designed now. And that is required in order for us to grapple with 1.9 trillion data points. This is who we have to look at. We have about 7 different ethnicities in the world. We have 2 primary genders, male and female, but boy, any kind of hormone replacement or trans stuff and you get a whole bunch more. But they're very different, the immune systems of males and females. You've got age. You change your immune system almost every year throughout your life. And you also have socioeconomic classes. So there's 5 recognized by the World Health Organization. And it is a fact, it's not a theory, that every one of these socioeconomic classes of peoples have a very fundamentally different immune system. Because if you're wealthy and eating very clean things that are organically grown and no fake stuff, then your immune system is strong. If you're very poor and you're relying on McDonald's and other fast foods and not eating very well, then your immune system is horrible. Likewise with the environments that you live in. You're also born into one of 5 states. You're either allergic to things or you're cancerous, high genetic predispositions, and etc. So all of these things have to be done. So think about a Gaussian norm, 1,000 of me. The same amount of money I make, where I was born, my gender, my habits, my exercise, 1,000 of me making a Gaussian norm of Hans for my particular age, but at every single year of my life. That's essentially what we're doing. The benefits of this are going to be you. You're going to have an avatar that's just like you. It's not you, but you'll be able to tweak that avatar to make it you very easily. Put your own habits and foodstuffs and behavioral regimes into that thing. But you're going to have an avatar. So Hans Kiersted is going to have an AI avatar of its immune system. And so I can say, what if I exercise a little bit more? What if I don't eat those foods? What if I take that drug? What's going to happen to me? A doctor can use this by checking. They're going to see, a black 50-something-year-old man come in and think, oh, I'll just give him that drug. But the AI is going to say, oh, actually, black 50-year-old men have the highest degree of autoimmunity in the world. You got to be really careful of any immune modulating drug you give them because they're autoimmune more than any other race on the planet. It's going to be very, very good for drug developers because we are going to be elucidating the largest number of new targets that have ever been exposed to the medical community. There will never be another endeavor that generates more specific targets than this endeavor. The Human Genome Project did do some targets. Cystic fibrosis is a very particular gene. So knowing that gene means you can fix the disease. But that is a rare case. Probably about 1% of all diseases are genetic in origin with a definite. It's actually a milieu of things that are going on that work through your immune system. Your age works through your immune system. Every manifestation of aging works through your immune system. So a thorough understanding in all groups of peoples will actually allow us to discover targets for intervention. And once you know a biological target to a mechanism of action in disease states, you can then put a diagnostic on it, and then you can also put a therapeutic on it. And so this alone is going to be the greatest birth of new drug targets ever introduced to humankind, and it'll be happening over the next 5 years. The researchers, of course, that's pretty obvious. They're going to be using this as a template as a background. They're going to be able to look at this 1.9 trillion data bits and say, how do you think hey AI system, how do you think my molecule is going to interact? It's going to completely run through that system and say, this is how it's going to interact. Governments love this because not only are we doing the scientific data, but I'm also having a full market landscape analysis put on this. So think about an M&A firm that you hire when you have your company that says, how many competitors are there to me? What's the funding history of each one of them? What did they sell for? What's the market size? How could the drug have been done better? All of that is going to be built on top of and together with this. So this AI is going to pop opportunities like 50-year-old men in there that are Black and say, here, you have this many of them in your country. It is a $2 billion annual market. That's going to entice the governments to fund and preferentially steer their NIHs and their dollars towards generating drugs for the particular indications in their own countries. It's interesting, like last year, I think I was talking to, I believe the number is 8 presidents and prime ministers, and they reduce all this down to, I want people to live longer, so they pay taxes and make jobs. That's it. And that is how a country is run. And this is the fastest way to get there. So hence the support that we have for the Human Immunome Project. So this thing is coming on. We're actually opening up our first centers. It's been about 4 years in development. Immunologists all over the world are agreeing that it is the right thing to do. And now we're actually raising $2.3 billion. So if you'd like to leave a check before you leave tonight, I really, really appreciate that. And it's just $2.3 billion. And the Human Genome Project was about $1 billion. This is a much, much larger endeavor, an order of magnitude more data generation, and the AI to build it will be far, far more useful. But this is something going on that's absolutely going to change medicine. So it's shifting towards the immune system, okay? All of medicine is now paying attention to it. And I think you've probably seen the best advances in immunotherapies for cancer. So many of you have probably heard about that because some of the greatest drugs saving more lives than anything else in the world over the last decade have come from immunotherapies for cancer. So now I'm going to switch and tell you 2 stories that I'm running, and they're both immune stories. And this is what happens when you know a little bit of an early look into the immune system. Think of this as 2 companies that are going to be 2 of thousands of companies that are going to pop out of information that the Human Immunome Project generates. So at AIVITA Biomedical, one of the things is a treatment for cancer. So we discovered, other people discovered, we just took advantage of the discovery that every single cancer in your body is born from a cancer stem cell. I'm a stem cell scientist, so when I saw that, I grabbed it, pulled it into my laboratories and made it better than anybody else. So we can now take any tumor and pull the tumor-initiating cells or cancer stem cells out of those tumors. So every single tumor of every cancer patient is born with a tumor-initiating cell, and that's 1% of the tumor. The tumor is 99% of stuff that just looks like you. That little stem cell makes hair, gut, skin, cartilage, and yes, they're all slightly mutated with cancerous antigens, but the vast majority of what they look like is your hair, gut, skin, cartilage. They're just made in a mess. Teratoma is Latin for monster. And they are born from a tumor-initiating cell. That TIC, or tumor-initiating cell, or cancer stem cell, does another thing. It migrates through your bloodstream and makes distant metastases. And here's the real beast. It actually falls asleep in some cases in your bone marrow or large blood vessels for 7 years and just sits there. Non-dividing, covers itself in sugars, hides itself, and then you think you're cured, chemotherapy, radiation, checkpoint inhibitors, I'm in remission. No, you're not. One of those sleepers wakes up and starts the entire cycle again. So that discovery was made in Harvard, it was made in, at the same time in Stanford. We grabbed that. My team was the first in the world, and to this date, the only team in the world to take stem cells and make them into high purity things, high purity oligodendrocytes or motor neurons or heart cells or various other types. Our purity is 99.6%, everybody else in the world is around 50. And we can do it in a commercially viable manner, and I have built and sold 3 companies using similar technologies. With AIVITA is a 4th company, and what this does is purify the tumor-initiating cell, which is a stem cell. That's that top line, and then we feed them to your immune system. So a simple blood draw, we pull out the frontline warrior of your immune system, your dendritic cell, and the dendritic cell is an awesome general of your army. It can hold thousands of markers, thousands of markers. So if we can isolate your tumor-initiating cells, which we can in that top 3 there's a surgical resection. We don't plan it. We just need a little tiny piece of the tissue, like a cubic millimeter, gets sent to my laboratories. Within 3 weeks, we've purified your cancer stem cells out of that. And your cancer stem cells have mutations that nobody else has. That's why we need yours. We teach the immune system in a dish how to go kill them, put them back into humans, and in melanoma, 72% survival in 2 years, 54 in 5. That's the largest, highest amount of survival ever reported in the cancer literature. And in glioblastoma, recent phase 2, 9 clinical centers around the United States, we have a 50% increase in survival over the greatest standard of care in the world right now for GBM. So that's published and FDA awarded, and now phase 3 awarded as well. And this is just a remarkable achievement in GBM. In the last 10 years, survival's only been increased by 10 to 14%. And this is a 50% increase in the number of people that are alive that should be dead. So it's a beautiful way to make a living. I'm just absolutely loving it. The other asset of this company is another dendritic cell therapy. So this little dendritic cell now is, it's the same dendritic cell that we pull out of people. So if you want a vaccine, this vaccine that we developed, you've got to get your blood drawn. But then we just purify your dendritic cells just like we did for the cancer vaccine, but instead of loading them with the tumor-initiating cells, teaching them how to go kill ticks, we load them with 10 different pathogens. So that list you see on the screen there, all of those things, just like SARS-CoV-2 is a little recombinant protein in an mRNA vehicle, it fills you up with that dirty protein and makes you feel a little bit sick, but works somewhat. We use similar technology in that we take that little protein, but we feed it to your own dendritic cell, eats it all up, expresses it as a human receptor, and we do that with 10 different pathogens, so that one single shot protects you against 10 things. And we actually don't make the vaccine, we sell a little kit, and literally a high school student can make that, and we showed that and published it. If you can operate a syringe, you can make this thing at point of care on a table. And so it is designed specifically for lower and middle income countries that can't get mRNA technologies, although we are now bringing it to the United States because it's got commercial approval in a couple of countries and it's spreading. And it's being really received very, very well around the world. $8, 10 different antigens, the fewest adverse events of any vaccine in the world ever made, with the highest efficacy of any vaccine in the world ever made for the longest duration of any vaccine in the world ever made. So it's a very good vaccine, costs very, very little to make. And so we're rolling this out in lower and middle income countries and soon the United States as a come once every year or two and get shot for 10 different things with a long lasting, with no side effects. In the last couple minutes, I'm going to show you one more immunological story that I'm just absolutely thrilled with. AIVITA Biomedical is in a final round. We have a fundraising round going on right now. That'll be its last round. We've got an offer to IPO it when the windows open up, and I'm selling it to 2 different countries for regional licenses. Still waiting for a rest of the world buyer, but it's quite mature. This company, as I saw AIVITA leaving, started up Immunis. And Immunis is a new company. It's only a couple years old. And what I did was incubated this through the mouse period so that we could get to humans by the time AIVITA was mature and sold. Then the total bear market over the last 2 years hit and nobody's buying anything. But Immunus has been taken off and going fast, and AIVITA is a little slower on the sale because of the depressed economy, and now I find myself running 2 companies, which isn't glorious, but it's working well so far. So what we did here, just in the last couple minutes, this is a new drug category. So I told you I advise governments all over the world. I saw a new drug category coming in. It started with botanicals, where the FDA said, no, we're not going to regulate botanicals because you can't make them the same way every single time. But me, being in the cell therapy field, thought, well, we're actually the leaders in the world at making high purity cells. Therefore, the sum total of what they secrete can be standardized every time. And we're one of only 2 companies in the United States that can do this. And there's 17 clinical trials worldwide, just a handful in the United States. But all of the competition is taking bone marrow extracts from you, growing them up, and then treating you. The results are amazing, but unfortunately, you have to have your bone drilled, and it costs about $350,000 cost of goods to make that drug. Ours is about 30 cents, because we don't have to do that. This is off the shelf. So we're growing up stem cells into an immune system precursor, and we are collecting the secretions. So the product is 440 things that are released by human immune system precursors. And we know that they affect the immune system. So you don't have to get into that slide, but the thing actually affects the immune system. And what does that do? We can see that it changes the epigenetics. Remember me telling you from the Human Immunome Project that all of the things that change you is all epigenetic. That's health span, lifespan. This stuff has fundamental changes to broad spectrum to your epigenetics. It turns on a pro-regenerative and anti-inflammatory response, both in mice as well as in rats. And, as well as in humans. So it is the only epigenetic modulator of the immune system that's known right now. So everything is about the immune system. We've just hit this with 440 active ingredients in a single drug. It's a brand new drug category. If you remember nothing else, remember that the United States FDA and every FDA around the world about 4 years ago allowed a new drug category of secretomes, and that the immune system needs this because it is so complex. You have so much redundancy. For every physiological norm, there's 5 or 50 things pushing, 5 or 50 things pulling. How do you drug that with a single active ingredient, like every drug you've ever taken? You can't. And therefore, here we are with a dearth of immunologically modulating drugs, right? Well, that's all going to change because now we can drug it with a multi-active drug. So this drug of Immuna, what we do is we take human stem cells, make them for the first time in the world to human immune system precursors. That's never been done before. We farm them by the billions and take their secretion set. When you're 27 years old, you're birthing your immune system every 2 weeks. So those youngsters, they're spewing out these 440 growth factors, and you're full of them. Your blood is full of nursing factors that affect DNA repair, fix all your immune cells, help them roll in and out, communicate. But at 57, not 27, every 2 weeks, 57, 2 to 6 years, you're birthing your immune system. So you have less youngsters, less secretome. So in effect, what we're doing is filling a gap that you develop with age. We did a whole bunch of rodent work. I'm not going to go through it, but just published it all, showing that this drug causes muscles to grow, fat to shrink, and about double the amount of energy these little critters have. And this is only the second time I've ever shown this, but I just got back the preliminary results from our phase 1/2A clinical trial in which we've been shooting up 65 to 75-year-old people. I know it says 50 and up, but we're actually taking people right around 70 and up. And these people have been immobilized with knee osteoarthritis. That's only to immobilize them, because think about a cast. You put a cast on somebody and you immobilize a limb, the muscle shrinks, and 100% of humans, your muscles shrink. Anybody in this audience is 50 or older, your muscles are shrinking. You can't avoid it. It's your immune system that starts shrinking your muscles. It's your immune system with age that peters out your metabolism, that thins your bones, that causes arterial stiffness, that causes brain inflammation, that causes a slowing and wound healing, that causes a cessation and elimination of your adaptive immune response. Old people die of COVID because they can't adapt to the bug. That's all of those things. Those are the primary manifestations of aging, all of them, and they're immunologically mediated, and we haven't had a drug. Now we have a 440 active ingredient that hits the immune system in 440 places. And what is that secretome? It's exactly what you had in you when you were 27. Precisely the same thing, same mixes. It does not vary with race. What we're showing in these humans is that the treated leg is growing 6%. So we're injecting right into one leg, immobilized with KOA. You know, there's not a lot of 70-year-olds playing hockey and football and wearing casts. So we use KOA in the osteoarthritis. It's just an immobilization. So these people cannot exercise. These are humans who do not exercise. Their legs usually drop by 1/3. I should have put that on the screen. But they actually increase by 6%. And the muscle is a very leaky bag. And this stuff goes all through mice and humans. It's concentrated where you put it, but every other muscle in the body of these humans are growing by 2%. That's just remarkable. On the right-hand side, that's a 6-minute walk test. That's the most important thing because it's an accredited quality of life measurement called the 6-minute walk test. You time for 6 minutes and you see how far and how fast people walk. And these people are increasing their ability to walk by 25%, which is extremely strong. So it's a functional outcome. We also pulled control groups that are perfectly matched to our group that had 8 weeks of exercise. And the shot of this stuff grows your muscles and makes you functionally in control of your muscles better than 8 weeks of exercise, or in another study, 6 months of exercise. So if you take 70-year-olds and say, exercise every single day, their muscles will grow a little bit, but Immuna is a shot that makes it grow more and have functional outcome. Pretty extraordinary. Yeah. This is a 6-minute walk test. In the black, you see double the dose in some humans that we just got out. Looks like we've got a dose response, which is really good. And pain is reduced by 50 to 70% in these people. 50 to 70% pain reduction. That's very good. And that's likely because we've dropped the immune response in their blood. So these are the 5 different big families of immune markers in your blood. As you age, you get inflamed. You can actually use that as bioaging and age people on the amount of inflammation in their blood. And I can tell you how old you are if you're more inflamed. These 70-year-olds have an inflammatory blood levels of a 45-year-old now because of this. Lastly, as you age, you degenerate your cartilage. Those things are eliminated. And we just got some data back that we're actually causing a little bit of bone density increase as well. So this story is just happens. It wasn't my plan. I didn't know that Ozempic and GLP-1s were going to sell to the tune of $2 to $5 billion a month, the highest selling drug ever in human history. And they work. They shrink your fat, but unfortunately, they also shrink your muscle. And so now they're being banned from application to 50 and above, because when you're over 50, you do not want to lose your muscle. Your muscle keeps neuroplasticity going and a whole bunch of other things besides strength. So they're being banned there. And about 80% of the consumers are actually diabetics. And so it's not a competition here. What I'm after with this drug is to have a single drug that you will use prophylactically to build your muscle to address metabolic decline. And the idea here is that, you know, I developed this after seeing cancer patients die for years and years, developing the AIVITA cancer treatment. And there's a common factor in every single cancer patient. You can't get cancer without a suppressed immune system. So my entire rationale for developing this was, let's get ahead of it and keep the immune system strong so you can't get cancer. But of course, while I was at that, I came to realize that every manifestation of aging is immunologically mediated. This has a lot more than just cancer in it. So I'm just delighted to have this thing busting out into the world. I just opened a funding round about 1 month ago. It's a $20 million round. We have 17.5 million committed, so there's a little bit left if anyone is interested. It'll go, so if you're interested, please act quickly, but it's just a total joy to be in this field. The last thing I'll say is that you know, being a stem cell scientist pulled me into a lot of different fields, and here I find myself being pulled into the longevity sector. You know, I'm a stem cell scientist, and I can tell you, like, 10 years ago, 9 out of 10 stories you heard on stem cells was absolutely ridiculous, snake oil. And today, 9 out of 10 stories in stem cells is absolutely ridiculous. In longevity, it's 99 out of 100. So it's a very difficult field to be in because there's so much noise and nonsense. So we're keeping this, of course, very, very high science, and wish us luck. Thank you very much.